Reviewed the film on Sunday, and I think that anytime you win a ball game, you're always looking for a lot of negatives and try to correct try to make the best of the learning opportunity you have after a couple tough losses. You obviously are going to have some negatives to point out, but try to point out some positives. And there were a lot of really good things happening. Some guys played extremely well. Still had a lot of guys do some things that took away from what we're doing, and overall, obviously, it wasn't enough to get it done. But I thought our guys showed some response, showed some resolve that I was happy to see, because there's at points when we've been here where that hasn't happened. So try to take that on Sunday. We're actually on fall break, so our players actually don't have classes today or tomorrow, so we could kind of adjust and adapt Sunday schedule to make the best of that situation. We came over, got the film behind us. I had a couple conversations. I talked to them on the front end, on the back end, and then also had some academic things we had to clear up with our guys, getting about midway through the semester to make sure that they're on track to get done what they need to get done. So put that one behind us and moved ourselves forward. Obviously, tremendous opportunity this week. Obviously, homecoming means a lot to some of the alumni coming back. UAB's done some really good things. Obviously, played a heck of a ball game against Mississippi State. Coach Clark's done an outstanding job wherever he's been. I think the up-tempo offense at times has shown to be very, very effective. They put up a lot of points against Mississippi State on the same account. In other ball games, scored a lot of points. Defensively, they're pretty opportunistic and got a lot of really good players that bring multiple fronts and bring a lot of different pressures. So from an injury standpoint, Andre Tolliver should be back with us tomorrow. He didn't. We didn't practice yesterday, but today we'll do a walkthrough for about a half hour. He'll be involved with that and should be back full go with us on Tuesday. And Brooks Ellis has continued to move forward. I don't know if we'll have him for Saturday. If not, we'll go with the same plan we had last week. If he's able to go, obviously we'll bring him into it. That's about it from an injury standpoint.
You've kind of gone from a position of such strength at running back and depth.
Yeah. Well, the good news is Jay Will has, remained consistently very, very good at what he's doing. I think that part is really cool. I think Denzel Evans and Cody Walker, you saw come in and do some really good things. Alex is just it's a little bit. He'd had actually a really nice week of practice, and the ball got away from him. The last two games, both of them have been toss plays. So we got to make sure that we're, getting everything across to him there. I think his eyes just came off where they need to be for a split second, and obviously couldn't have been in a worse location or a worse time on the field on Saturday for that to happen. I am. I think Jay Will, Alex. When and if Corliss comes back, he's very talented. We've got a player that we redshirted, Jawan Day, that has been very impressive since we got him. I knew he was a really good player. Obviously, we offered him and everything went into it. He actually, if you remember, had an injury his senior year, which kind of backed off probably anybody else continuing to recruit him, even last year with the struggles that we had. But Jay Day has been very impressive in fall camp, and we actually were going to play him, but just felt that at that point with the guys that we had, in addition to Cody Walker and Denzel Evans, it wasn't worth our while.
And going back and watching it again after seeing the tape, what do you think happened?
Bo, that was exactly what it is. I kind of did one of those moments, Saturday night, get back home and sat down on the couch and I always kind of flip on the SEC network or ESPN, just kind of see what else went on. And when I sat down, SEC network, someone made reference, one of the commentators made a comment, it was blowout Saturday in the SEC, and I was angry because I'm like, we didn't get blown out now. But I started looking at the scores and I saw them come across, so actually I asked Zach and his crew to reach out to me, and it was interesting. I looked at the scores and I saw the A&M Alabama game, and that was pretty lopsided at halftime. The scores at halftime for the Mississippi Florida game was 20-0. It was 45-0 Alabama over A&M. It was 27-3 LSU over UK, and we were down 38-6. The results of those games continued the trend in every one of them but one, which is ours, and we outscored ours. It jumped out to me too. I also listened to Coach Rick speak in his presser, and he made a comment or reference that we outplayed them in the second half, and sometimes you're oblivious to that because you don't think that way. But we did outscore them 26-7. UK never, the other games ended up 41-3, 59-0, 42-13. Ole Miss beat Tennessee 41-3. Those teams that were behind at the half, there wasn't a resolve that our guys have, and I give a lot of credit to our coaches and our players for doing that, because that don't happen. And again, it's a great testament to our and believe me, I so want to be over this hump and be where we need to be, but I think a lot about even like a year ago when people would say, Coach, how do you know what's coming, or why do you say that, or what do you get excited about? And I would say to you guys, and I would say to other people, and I think they're just like, oh yeah, that's coach speak. Well, it's not. It's not. I see the things coming, and there's a great case in point. We played really bad football for about a 5 or 6 minute stretch in the second quarter that you can't do versus good teams, because they will capitalize on it like no other, and that's exactly what Georgia did. But then our guys responded in the second half, took the fight to them, and capitalized really on every opportunity. Still didn't play a complete clean game in the second half, but played very, very well, and were able to outscore an opponent that is very good, 26-7. And that doesn't happen if you're a team that is quitters or doesn't have the desire to have success. So it's another great indicator of why I know what's coming.
Coach, you can say that the first drive, y'all march the ball right down the field, and you get the ball back, they get 2 sacks. Do you think the offense got a sense of overconfidence at that point, and Georgia just hit y'all in the mouth, or was it just the couple stretches of bad play?
Well, no. I mean, obviously the first drive was done flawlessly, executed. They didn't do some of the things in the other drives that caused failure. We didn't get behind the chains. We obviously had great ball security, and we converted on third downs. And then in the red zone, we obviously managed to capitalize on our opportunity there. But after that, yeah, I think there was a little bit of our defense got hit in the mouth a little bit, which then obviously caused them to quick score. Offensively, then we went through, I believe, our first, if I'm not mistaken, we went through our first 5 games with 4 turnovers, and we've had 7 in the last 2. And you just can't put the ball on the ground. I mean, if there's a program that practices ball security more than, it's almost like we may be putting so much of an emphasis on it, it becomes a side issue. But that is something that we need to clean up, and obviously it kind of happened at a variety of different spots with a variety of different players. No, I think that without a doubt, you got to give credit to your opponents. I mean, there was a couple of very nice counter moves and some rushes that are good by them. But on the same account, we have to protect our quarterback. We were on the ground. The quarterback hit the ground 11 times, and obviously BA got up slow a couple times. You're just playing Russian roulette there if you let your quarterback get hit. And you know what I need to see? I need to see some urgency out of them. That, hey, I got beat and my quarterback's on the ground. I better be back there helping them up and letting them know it ain't going to happen again. So there's some development by our guys that we need to continue to stress and move forward, but it's nothing that we can't really overcome or emphasize.
How is Brandon feeling right now after 11 hit the ground? I know he had to cut.
Yeah. Again, I think the very first one, he landed on the ball, which really probably ends up being the sorest part of his body. I mean, you can ask him when he talks tomorrow, I guess. But, he's a tough competitor. He came back in that second half and was absolutely relentless and just trying to get another first down, trying to get a score, trying to get what we need to get done. But we can't, on the same account, he doesn't get a pass. I mean, he's got to make improvement like everybody else. And, there were a lot of things that happened during the course of that second quarter. Obviously we had a turnover or a sack fumble that turned into 6 points, which obviously turns into 7. We turned the ball over on the 6 or 7 yard line, which was one play score. That's 14 points. But then at the end of the half, we throw an interception that denies. We're trying to get a touchdown, but for sure we want to get a field goal out of it. That's 17 points in a quarter that you can't spot. I mean, we lost by 13. You can't spot Georgia 17 points. In addition to some other miscues that we had of defense just giving up free yardage. There was a play that we ran a very good pressure that's been a good pressure for us that we didn't get didn't get executed across the board, and it was a quick, easy 7-point score for them. That's 24 points in like 4 plays. I mean, it's it can't happen. If we want to be good teams, that's the point that has to change. And I've been a pretty understanding soul of things are going to happen, and I need to get better. We all need to get better. But at a point too, we need to have guys step up to accountability and guys play the way that they're capable of playing, and have your coaches being able to understand that that's going to be the way you get executed. I had a great quote that I used on our guys a couple weeks ago. It was actually one of our Bible studies. We talked about, as a man, you teach what you know, but a lot of times you reproduce what you are. And there comes a point in time where our players, they can give you the right answer, and as coaches, we can give them and provide them, hey, this is where your eyes go, this is what you need to do, this you need to execute it. But if you revert back to what you've done in the past, you're going to get the same results, and that's what we got to eradicate.
You mentioned the other night that you guys are paper thin. Any particular spots that you talk about? How does that manifest itself in the game?
Well, here's a case in point, Tom. I think this kind of puts it into perspective. We're paper thin in the fact that if we got a certain level of players that are playing in a certain way, and then when one of those players isn't there, that new guy that comes in hasn't got a lot of experience, or he hasn't been put in that role. And I'm just going to take, for instance, Mike linebacker. Josh played as well as I could have expected him to play. He prepared very, very well. So that's Mike linebacker. But the week before, we were outstanding on kick coverage against Alabama because we had Brooks Ellison in our L5. No one really knows that. But that's the truth of the matter. And now all of a sudden, Brooks Ellis, not only is he out at the Mike linebacker, he's out at my L5 on kickoff coverage. He's out at my left guard on punt. And those two those two positions in addition to his Mike linebacker are huge. So now we're hodgepodging, guys into those positions, and it obviously has a big time effect. But that can be said for every, it's kind of like one of those, you take a guy here to plug into that spot, and now you're kind of a deficient at those other spots. So the more depth we can get recruiting, the more depth that we can get of younger players. We're really missing that 220 to 245 pound athlete that can play a lot of different positions, which for me traditionally has always been tight ends, linebackers, running backs, fullbacks, bigger wide receivers. That's the niche overall. And then to be quite honest, at offensive line and D-line, the depth in the fourth quarter becomes a real issue.
Well, that plays into kind of the next thing on special teams. Are you having some concerns with punting?
Well, that's one guy, which is Toby Baker is going to be our punter on Saturday unless I see something change on Sam. We had 3 punts that we need to be able to, and he can easily do it. And Sam is a tremendous kid that I love to be around on a daily basis, but I'm also a bottom line results guy, and he's capable of hitting the ball better, so he will. Or Toby Baker will definitely have his shot come Saturday. I think the PAT field goals, we obviously had a little penetration on that first one, but Adam McFain gets to kick up so quickly that he's going to handle the kicking duties until I see something different to take him out of that role.
What's going on with Stanford? I mean, he was killing it.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, the part that we have to kind of try to analyze all the time is there something going on different. There's nothing different in our practice setup, our mechanics. One of the things I've really prided ourselves on is I've always, as a head coach, had fairly decent production out of our kickers and punters, and I do some very unique things, going back to like how I handled Hocker and the way he reps during practice. And Sam was obviously a very productive punter a year ago, and nothing has changed except for maybe I'm trying to do it that much more. Sometimes seniors, because they're seniors and they want to make great impressions to try and get their next opportunity, try to overthink the scenario a little bit. And I purposely haven't rugbyed Sam because I want to give him a chance to show, that he can hit the ball on a conventional punt. But the rugby game is definitely going to have to take into effect now. Yeah. Well, obviously with the issues that Dan had, we basically said if we had another thing pop up, we were going to, make a switch and let them know that we can't have that type of penalty. And I don't know if you saw it or not, we overcame his penalty, but I brought the official over, and at the time I didn't quite get the explanation I was looking for. They called initially, they signaled chop block, and all this different stuff. What he ended up doing is he's blocking the backside defensive end, and it's a toss play away, and he's blocking them like we do 100 times every time in every game, and he dropped low and cut him. And I've definitely sent it in. I want clarification on why that was called, but that's bottom reason why we moved him.
The chop block can only be called if he's engaged
By two people, yeah. So he was engaged all by himself. So there's also a call, where you can't cut back away from where the ball is going, but so he's on the backside. He's making a play. The ball's being tossed out here, so now he's paralleling him with the ball, and he just finishes the block. I'm very curious to find out the explanation for it.
What was the call on Tevin Mitchell? What was
He got involved. Both Tevin and Demetrius both got called for reacting to as is the case, you say it, all the kids think you're crazy, but again, we had two older players with a lot of experience revert back to a way of playing that we can't have, and that's the second man always is going to be the guy that gets caught.
Martrell and Brooks were playing well together.
Mm-hmm.
How much of a learning curve is it when you get those guys, when you mix and Josh into the mix?
Yeah. Well, Josh had done a nice job coming in a reserve role, in several games, but I think, yes, you play next to each other, but in today's schemes, your Sam and your Mike and Will are usually so spread out from one another. The days of, well, he plays right next to me, I get a feel that kind of has lost its effect. Now, you're out there on the field together, I get it, but I don't think Martrell was really affected at all by Brooks not being there, I guess is what I'm saying. Martrell is playing lights out. I mean, I gave a reference to him yesterday during my talk with our players. Even if you're not playing linebacker, you should pay attention to how Martrell Spade is living life. He's on top of everything. And when he first came here, I used to have some conversations, about being on time and accountability in the classroom and doing some things in a certain way that I expect him to be done. And he has bought in 100 times over. I think him and his dad and I were in multiple conversations last year, and I haven't had one with him other than greatness. I can't say enough about what he's doing, and for our younger players to see him walk into a meeting room and prepare the way he does and play with the intensity that he does is really special. He's playing phenomenal football.
Bret, how did the team in general respond, say, the last day?
Well, I brought him over yesterday afternoon. They had a modified lifting group. We met with them for 15 minutes at the beginning, and then we did an hour and 15 minutes of meeting time. And then I brought him back in. And the first part, I wanted to talk to him strictly about X's and O's, just how you play the game, what's expected, read your keys, understand that you're going to see good, you're going to see bad, you're going to see things that we can be corrected, things that we got to eradicate, things that we got to remove. And then after watching with our coaches, I went around the room and asked some of the leaders of our team, what did you see? What can you do well? What can you do? What did you do well? What do you got to do better? And I got a lot of variety of responses. And then I kind of just talked to them about, the different approach that I really believe is you build your reputation over a period of time that it takes your whole life. You can take forever to build the value of your name. One of the things I always tell our guys when they first come in is, all of us are given one thing at birth that you carry with you your entire life that doesn't cost you a dime, and that's your name. My name is Bret Bielema, and I've tried to add value to that name every day of my life. And I'm not talking about value in your bank account. I'm not talking about what kind of house or car or any of that jazz. I'm talking about what you are when you're in a room, but more importantly, what does someone say about you when you leave? And they've built a reputation off of a lot of things they've done this year. And for about 10 minutes in the middle of the second quarter, you try to take away from everything you built. And the reputations are very fragile in the fact that the more you add to them takes a long, long time. But when you detract from them or you subtract, it takes a very short amount of time. And everything that we had built up was kind of in balance there in the middle of that second quarter. And unfortunately, they came out the second half and responded properly. But we got to do it again this weekend.
I love asking you about this.
Yeah.
The mental stuff. But last year, as things kind of got away from the.
We never got it back.
Right.
Yep.
What way are you kind of being proactive this year, maybe to help avoid that happening, a letdown like that happening?
Well, I think the one part that I not only took from my self-evaluation, but also from my coaches, and also talking to some of the seniors that left our program a year ago, was for me to just be a lot more forceful and be a lot more involved. For instance, I had a little bit of an issue the way a couple guys were playing, and I initially was going to talk to their assistants about it, but I called them all in there together and basically, said some things that you shouldn't say on camera, but also let them understand that, I care about them, I love them, but this is not going to be accepted. And they responded very, very well. At halftime, I didn't want to, have a Bobby Knight blow up and call him every name in the book. I wanted to hear what's wrong, how can we fix it. I brought all my coaches together, which we never do. I never bring all my coaches together at halftime. I brought them all together and usually just go offense, defense, and I go around and visit with them. I wanted to hear this is what I expect, this is what I want done, and this is what needs to happen. And we didn't win, so it didn't work, but we definitely made a step in the right direction.
Three top 10 teams, the last three matchups, pretty high advantage for this program, and now you have UAB this week. Like you said, they can score some points.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you do extra as coaches to try and get your players up, maybe from a natural letdown when you have those kind of marquee matchups?
I don't think the group that I'm coaching, I think respects the game in a very appropriate way. That's what's made us play well against. We got 4 losses against 4 teams that have been ranked in the top 10. If somebody can say that, that's awesome. I'm happy for you. So I don't complain about the schedule. I just live it. It's what we got, and it's a heck of a lot of fun, and it's what motivates you. And I know this, our guys will respect the game this weekend because they see it on film, but more importantly, I think they respect themselves enough to know that, we've only got, obviously, 5 guaranteed opportunities left, and I don't want that to be the end of it. I want to be able to get a bonus game, and for us to get to where we need to be, we need to start winning some games, and that's obviously this weekend.
Besides the rankings, what makes the league, in your opinion, as difficult as it is when you face these games every Saturday?
Well, the rankings are the rankings aren't on the field. It's the players. I think you take a look at Georgia and obviously lose what a lot of people would argue are the best running back they have, and they have a freshman come in and execute the way that he does. I think O-line, D-line depth, again, one of my biggest concerns that I continually try to enforce in us in recruiting and development and player development with Herbs that unfortunately takes the longest time. You can a lot of times just go grab a running back and change your program or grab a wide receiver, but very seldom is there one lineman that can change your program in a season, and that is what has been, and I knew was going to be the slowest to develop, was our O-line and D-line depth and ability to execute the plan that we want. So that's probably continued to be the number one thing. I think overall as well is very, very solid defense. I mean, you look at the emergence of Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Someone pointed out to me, Ole Miss, I think we're 0-16 in SEC play. That started before I got here, but Ole Miss saying that same record at one time, and look where they are now. So I have tremendous respect for those two coaches, and it shows what you can build if you stick to what you believe in, and that's exactly what Ole Miss and Mississippi State has done, as well as everybody else.
How important a week do you think this is for your O-line, your ground game, to try to reestablish so much success with their
Yeah, well, I think Saturday we kind of had to get out of the run game just because we of the score and where it was at, and we got a little bit of a hot hand and thought we could capitalize on some throw game situations. So that was more of the situation that was created by our entire team, not really by our offense. If you go back to the game before that against Alabama, obviously a very stout front that we took advantage of some things, but didn't take advantage of everyone that we wanted, and unfortunately weren't able to close the gap in the third and fourth quarters the way we wanted to. So it's an important week because it's the next game on our schedule, and we want to try to like crazy to get to 4 wins, and this is the week that we have to do it. But other than that, I don't know if there's any more importance with the run or throw games. Just go out and execute. He didn't play. You know what? And that's a great point. What we do, this is just how I operate. We have a meeting basically on Thursday where we say, hey, here's the starters. Who's we going to start? What's the plan? When we have guys that we want to play significant time in a reserve role, we discuss that. So Frank Ragnow was going to go in the first series in the second quarter, basically get him involved in what he's been playing anyway. Sometimes he actually played more snaps than Mitch. He was concussed the week before. During the course of the week, he had practiced good, but it hadn't been great. And at the timing where he was supposed to go in. We had just had a fumble, backed up, and we were going all shotgun. And if there was any type of bad situation there, you could scar that kid and set him back, maybe a 2 or 3 games, or set him back an entire year. And he's been making so much progress that I admire Sam. Sam didn't play him for a reason. He cared about him enough to not put him into a situation that failure might be more than we could handle, or that he could handle. And Frank's a great kid. I'd be very surprised if he's not an All-American here by the time he gets done playing. But for him to play on Saturday, and in my assessment, as well as Coach Pittman, it wasn't the best thing for the kid.
Time for a couple more.
Does the tight ends play, has it been what
Awesome.
you expected? And is Hunter's blocking coming along?
I can't say enough about Barry Lunny and Jim Chaney for what they've done with that position. Coach Lunny is as detailed. I mean, there's no surprise to me why his dad wins all those games, and has been such a great coach over the course of time, because he has taught his son how to be one heck of a ball coach. From detail, I think every one of his players is different. Hunter Henry is different than A.J. Derby, and Jeremy Sprinkle is different than him, and Volsky's different than him, and he's got a plan for each one of those kids every day. I see it on paper. He writes it down. It's just awesome, and there's no secret to why those guys have gotten better. A.J. Derby has played tight end for 7 games. Every NFL scout that comes in asks about him, and is going to be rewarded. Hunter Henry, I think a little bit because he's playing over there in Little Rock, and it means a lot for him. But he also grew up in Georgia, so he had a little bit of taste for that game, and probably played as good a game as he's played since he's been here. And that involves catching the football, blocking, being engaged in the game plan, and fighting his heart out.
Your assessment of the targeting thing,
You know,
going through it with Raymond?
Yeah, I think 2 things. First, it's a rule that needs to be there. We all want to, be great in player safety. As you guys know, it's a very big deal to me. That rule was put in place to deter a certain type of behavior. I think as a byproduct of that, we all said when that rule went in, there's going to be some natural football plays that unfortunately are going to fall into this category. And I don't think Braylon Mitchell took off after that quarterback with the intent to target him. I know Braylon, and I know the way the play kind of laid out, but when I'm watching that play, I don't know if you could ask him to do any other thing. He's trying to get to that quarterback as he's getting ready to throw it. The byproduct of that play is we lost contain by our defensive end. We got a flush by Tywan Johnson up the middle, who flushes the quarterback out. The play begins to break down, and there's other things begin to break down around it. And the result was they called him for targeting and went to the booth. I thought there was a chance it might get thrown out, but obviously it didn't, and he's all set to go on Saturday. And I think overall we'll be a better team because of it. I believe the rule has been in place now over 2 years, right? This is our 3rd year doing it. It's the first time I've ever lost a player to it. I take a lot of pride in how our guys play, and hopefully we won't have any time soon.
Last one. Is there a plan to play Austin Allen this week, perhaps more than any other week, as the game develops?
Austin Allen? No. Brandon Allen will be a quarterback every play that he's eligible and healthy to do so.